Welcome to Evolve Through God. My name is Angela Goodman, and I am so excited today. I have a very dear friend of mine with me today that I have known. It's been 4 years now, actually, and he's been a great friend. We met through the Arate Syndicate back in 2021. And Sammy Farrens, welcome to the podcast today.
Hello, hello. Thank you so much for having me. I truly appreciate it. And yes, your friendship means so much to me. So,
Well, I tell you what, I look back over the last 4 years and our communication. You've always been a person who has been there for me and in my corner, and you do that for so many people in your life. And I'm excited today because I don't know a lot about your relationship with God. I know little bits and pieces here and there, and I know there have been some ups and downs and some really light and some really dark times. So I'm excited for you to help people from your journey today.
well, yes, everything you just said is so true. Ups, downs, around, God hitting me with a bat and a sledgehammer at times. And, again, for me, it all comes back to trust. And I really believe once we finally allow that trust, it's more than what we ever expected. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, I love that. I love that you say that. All right, so I don't want to get too far. Let's get started. Let's talk about, I know, let's talk about what your early life was like. When did you first kind of find out about God? What did that look like for you?
well, I feel like I was like maybe most people, small town. We had three or four churches. We went to one church, and I was your probably normal kid. I played with the other kids. And when I say kids, I mean clear up through like teenager. And I went to church because I was supposed to go to church. And so we went on Sundays and
Okay.
then we went on Wednesdays. And then if somebody said, well, hey, tell me about God, I didn't really know much. I
Mhm.
was there for the fun, for the community,
Yeah.
for the other kids. And that was kind of my childhood. I went because mom said, hey, we're going to church.
Okay. All right. So your mom
And,
was the one who introduced you to the faith.
yep,
And
yep,
okay.
definitely
Yeah,
mom.
I'm telling you, that's a theme for sure. Most of my guests, it's all
Oh,
about
yeah,
mom. Mom is the one
mom.
who says we're going to church.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that in my case was definitely true. And we didn't miss. I mean, there was no, you know, uh, my mom was in a wheelchair with polio. And so we didn't drive to church. We walked to church.
Hmm.
And it didn't matter snow, rain, uh, you know, and because of her, they actually built a ramp onto the church.
Oh,
So
wow.
uh, lo and behold, it actually allowed a lot more senior citizens to show up to our church. So our church population actually grew because of my mom and because we built a ramp.
Wow. Wow.
Again,
So
it's small town.
do you remember, I know the story of your mom and we've talked about that. And Sammy's also an author. So for those of you who don't know, he's written a few books. And so we'll make sure we have those in the show notes because I want them to be able to read the story about you and your mom. Do you remember a time in your young childhood or adolescenthood that your mom's faith was ever tested? Do you remember any times like that?
No, I really don't. Um, that happened later in her life for me, where I noticed
Hmm.
it.
Hmm.
Again, being a kid and even a young adult, I don't know that I ever looked for it. Well, I'm sure it was there and it was present. Oh, I know it was there because of what did happen later in her life that I was a part of. I didn't notice it when I was young.
Hmm.
I really, and even after teenage, now I go in the military. Um, went to same deal. I went to church because I was, I felt like, oh, I was supposed to go to church,
Hmm.
but I didn't know the Bible. I didn't know God. I was there because it was like a checkbox, check the box. Did you go to church this week? Yep, I went.
And that was when you were on your own? That was after you had moved out and were in the service and everything?
Yep, yep.
Okay. Okay.
And then get back home from the service. I'm in my early 20s and 20s through probably mid 30s, I'm having my own kids, and it was the same deal. I mean, I can really look back now and go, I never allowed myself to dive deep into what is God, what is Jesus, this Bible thing,
Mm-hmm.
what's that?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we see it, we know it's there. It's all effort, and it's all do I really allow this into my life? And I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And and I now I can say that because of that, because I really didn't allow it in, I believe that the ups and downs that were so hard, the downs that were so hard,
Mm-hmm.
were a lot harder because I didn't have faith. I didn't have
So, well,
Jesus.
let's talk about, if you don't mind sharing, and if
No,
you
I
do, as I go, let's talk
open
about
book.
what some of those downs looked like. I mean, because there's going to be a lot of people on here who listen and have been through their own challenges in life that, and may have more to come, that are looking for, how do I see? How do I understand? How do I get out of it? So let's talk a little bit about, if you'd like to share one or more of what's happened to you in those down periods of what you experienced and what you know now.
Yeah. Um, One of the biggest downs was when I was in the military and I got shipped over to Korea. Now that's a 1 year
Mm-hmm.
commitment. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's no coming home, no anything like that. And I was truly homesick mentally. It
Mm-hmm.
was the physical part, but it was mental, to the part where I found myself standing on top of a 4-story building
Oh, wow.
and was ready to just be done,
Wow.
and I wanted to come home. I had a new wife, a new kid. I've always been a mama's boy, so
Yeah.
miss my mom.
How old were you
And
at that time, Sammy?
I was 20,
Okay.
20 years old, so still very young. And I was just ready to be done. And a gentleman opened the door, which we were never on the roof of this building. So
Mm-hmm.
how I kind of ended up there,
Mm-hmm.
who knows? But then he ended up there, and
Was he there
this
for the same reason?
no, he
Okay.
was there um, because he was coming to have a cigarette, and he knew
Okay.
he could sneak up there and have a cigarette.
Oh, man. Oh, man.
and
I get a full
it,
body chills right now because he got sent there to save you.
yes, yeah, and he did. He came up and he's like, "What you doing up here?" And we talked for a few minutes, and he's like, "Can I say a prayer for you?"
Mm.
And I'll never forget. I told him,
Wow.
I said, "I don't care if you do or not." And that's where I was in my faith. I,
Mm-hmm.
but he said it, and I didn't close my eyes. I didn't hold his hands. I wasn't in that frame of mind,
Mm-hmm.
but it was enough that he goes, "Why don't we hang out tomorrow?"
Mm.
And I was like, "All right." And he said a prayer, and then we talked for a minute, and he said, "Well, let's hang out tomorrow." And the tomorrow part's what really got me. It was,
Yeah.
all right, well, I can't do this tonight. I guess let's
I
just
have to
talk
be around
tomorrow.
tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was a very, very low spot. And
Did you hang out with him tomorrow?
yes, I did. I did.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. We hung out a few times, and his name was Sergeant. It's a weird last name, Brad Lakehoff. Brad Lakehoff.
That's the whole name?
That was his last name.
Okay.
Yeah. And literally, I probably seen him maybe 4 times after that, and then I've never seen him, heard from him, nothing ever again.
Okay.
But that's all right. He was there for the moment that,
Oh, he was your angel in that moment for sure.
yeah,
There's no doubt. He was performing miracles for God right in that moment.
yeah. And it's,
Mm-hmm.
we fast forward to, for me, when I can honestly say I found God, or God, I finally allowed him in, because I found him way before
Well,
that, but I
that
didn't
happens when
accept
you're
him.
20. That happens when you're 20. What's the next big thing that you remember? Don't jump too far ahead. We got
Oh,
time.
okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We got time. Don't jump too far ahead. I want to hear the messengers that have been sent to you in your life, because I feel like a lot of us when we're in that hazy area of our
Mm,
faith, we don't see the messengers. But when we go back and we look, we can't miss them. So what's that next thing for you? What's that next moment that now you look back and you're like, "Oh dang, that was definitely a messenger in that moment."
Um, Probably in my late 20s, I I, again just wasn't in the right mindset as far as I felt very lost.
Mhm.
And what am I supposed to do with my life? I was doing construction and I really didn't enjoy it that much, but I've up until recently, say within the last 10 years, I was very, why did I go in the army? I don't know. Nothing else to do. Well, why
Mhm.
did I do this? I don't know. And I lived my life as, I don't know. I'm just supposed to do this, I guess.
Mhm.
And there was no real rhyme or reason behind anything. And so I was doing construction and just had hit a spot. I was making good money. It wasn't a money thing. It was, we were buying our house and it was just me really questioning my life
Mhm.
and and going, what's next? If this is all my life is meant to be? Like again, why am I here?
Mhm.
And kind of the same deal. I found myself in a car one night doing about 120 miles an hour,
Mhm.
and I had seen a brick wall. Like there's this huge brick wall. And I was like, if I hit that thing just hard enough. Now, again, my thinking was at that time I was in the union. And if I'm gone, boy, my wife and kids are going to be set
Oh
financially.
boy. Oh
So
boy.
that's good. They're good. And so
Mhm.
that wasn't a thought. It was like, okay, well, they're good. I'll be gone. No big deal. Nobody's going to miss me
Yeah.
because I don't really bring anything to the table anyway.
Oh my goodness. You know so much better now, don't you?
Oh boy.
Mm.
And so I see this brick wall. I'm driving, like I say, around, I think it was 123, and that's where the governor was set on the car.
Wow.
And as I got closer, and it was dark, it was nighttime.
Mhm.
As I got closer, there was a homeless guy sitting there by the wall. And I slammed on the brakes at the last second, skidded to a halt, and was like, what? Because my thought was, well, I'm not here to do any harm to him, so I don't want to hurt him.
Yeah.
So now I got to
Yeah.
figure out a different idea.
Oh boy.
And I actually ended up getting out of the car and I walked over to this gentleman because he was just setting up, like looking
Mhm.
at, he was sitting there.
Yeah, I'm
Again,
sure he was like, "What is going on right now?"
nope, I think it's got something to do with the cigarettes because he was sitting there and I walked up and he had an unlit cigarette and he goes, hey, do you got a light? And I go, and at that time in my life, I did actually smoke. And I said,
Yeah.
yeah, hold on. And I went back to the car and got him a light and everything. And I sat there for, I don't know, probably 2 hours. And we just talked and what brought him to be here. And he felt so worthless. And that was his life. And he goes, well, I just finally left my wife. And I think he said he had one or two daughters.
Mhm.
And he goes, they were better off without me. And he goes, I didn't, and this was the conversation. I didn't want to kill myself. So I just decided, well, I'll just be by myself. And he goes, and I think had been homeless for 3 or 4 years.
Wow.
And he was sitting by that wall. And I was like, oh, I can't do this to him.
It was like no, and it was like God was showing you in that moment, like this could be where you are,
Yeah.
right? This could be where
Yeah.
you are, and you're not here. Did you ever see him again?
Oh no, that was that night. And I
Yeah.
was actually in St. Louis, which at that time I lived about an hour and a half from. So I was never even down in that area. I just happened to
Yeah.
be in that area that night, seen that wall, and
And
that's
that
where I was
guy,
gonna do it.
did
And
he have a name? Did you ask him his name?
I did. I be honest with you, I don't remember
Yeah.
his name.
Yeah.
I think it was right at the beginning of the conversation. I don't even think I called him his name. I just,
Yeah.
but it was, yeah, that was just another night. But then I'll be honest, those are the two lowest points. Those are my two lowest
Mm-hmm.
points of my
Mm-hmm.
life.
Mm-hmm.
But then I also look back again, like you said, you don't
Yeah.
look back until you're way ahead. And I
Mm-hmm.
look back and I go, man, when my youngest daughter was born, my wife, I was working nights, and my wife said, hey, tomorrow morning when you get home, we've got to go out to Columbia. I've got my final doctor's appointment or whatever. And I was like, all right. Now we lived about an hour and a half from the hospital,
Mm-hmm.
right? From Columbia.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, okay, no big deal. Got home, drove out to Columbia, and she went in for her appointment. And I sat in the waiting room. I said, well, I'm just going to sit here because I hadn't been to bed. I had just worked all night.
Right.
I said, I'm just going to sit here and go to take a nap real quick. And she's like, okay, that's fine. She came back out from the appointment and we went to, so when you left that office, you went left to go to the parking lot and you
Mm-hmm.
went right to go to the main hospital.
Mm-hmm.
But we left that office and she went right and I went left and I went, where are you going? And she goes, I'm contract or I'm oh, what is it?
Dilated.
Dilated.
Mm-hmm.
I'm dilated so much and having contractions. The baby's coming
Oh.
right now.
Oh.
And I was like, wait, we've got two kids an hour and a half from here that have nobody to watch them.
Oh boy.
And she said, well, I'm going to go check in. You go grab the kids. And I was like, okay, here I go. And boom, I hopped in the car and zipped back home real quick, grabbed the kids out of school because it was like an hour before they were getting out of school.
Right.
Grabbed the kids, zipped back in the car, and I had to stop because this was before cell phones. So I had to stop by my uncle's house and go, I need you to hop in right now and go to the hospital with me because we need somebody to watch the kids
Yeah.
at the hospital
Yeah. Yeah.
while we have this baby. And so he hopped in, boom, we ran and we're back at the hospital. And she had the baby about 10 minutes after I got back. And it was
Wow.
like, cool, I made it.
Yep. Yep.
And to
God
me,
said, there you go. I don't want you to miss it. Yeah.
yeah. And that, well, my other two kids, I wasn't there because of the military. I wasn't there. So I
Yeah.
was, man, I don't want to miss this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
To
did,
me,
and you didn't miss it. You
and I
didn't
didn't
miss
miss it, you know,
That's
and
awesome.
so to me, that's God. And I look back and I go, yeah, he was there that moment.
Mm-hmm.
But also, like you said, I can look back and go, well, there was the littlest of things,
Mm-hmm.
you know, was God speaking, you know, being there with me.
Yeah.
Um,
So you go through this moment in your late 20s and you meet this man as you're thinking about taking your life. What is the next thing that happens after that for you? Do you put together somebody's trying to tell me not to do this, or at that point in time you just move forward into your 30s and it's life as usual?
it's life as usual.
Okay.
And that's, like I said earlier, it's, I think God, he uses a sledgehammer on us. And even then we're so hard headed.
Sometimes we have to have the sledgehammers. That is very true.
Time and time again. And I would say that really the sledgehammer started taking hold
Mm-hmm.
uh the day that my mom did pass away.
Okay.
Like that's really when my journey with God started,
Okay.
you know. And it was even then it was he hit me a couple of times and I got ran over by a diesel truck and he was
Mm-hmm.
there and
Mm-hmm.
you know, but
Well, let's talk about that. So your mom struggled obviously with her health for most of her life. So let's talk about that if you're willing to share. You know, what was the
yeah.
last couple of days like with her for you?
So mom had polio and the polio had advanced and with it advancing it had unlocked she had one of the hepatitises that
Oh,
one of the bad ones. I don't know, you know. I think it was A.
yeah. A is the bad one. A is the
Yeah.
bad one. Yeah.
And then she found out she had liver cancer.
Mm.
And this was all I'm talking within 2 months. Like
Yeah.
polio's advanced and this happened and then cancer and everything. And so she was in and out of the hospital quite a bit
Mm-hmm.
to the point that they had brought in hospice and um, even through hospice, they were taking her to the hospital quite a bit. And on a Friday, my sister called me and said, "Hey, they're taking mom up to Mexico to the hospital. I don't know what's going on, but they're taking her." And I said, "Okay." So I lived like an hour and a half from her. So I'm
Right.
zipping the car. I go to Mexico. I'm here, and I go into the ER, and I'm here for Carolyn Grimes. Oh, well, they're shipping her to Colombia. And I'm like, well, crap, that's another hour away. So, so I hop in the car, I run to Colombia, and I beat the ambulance to Colombia,
Okay.
get there, and I'm telling the people at ER, I'm here for Carolyn Grimes. Carolyn Grimes, like, where's she at? We don't know. We don't know who she is. We
Oh
don't.
my gosh.
And then I hear behind me, I hear, Sammy, what are you doing here?
Oh my
And
gosh.
and there's my mom. And they're wheeling her in on a stretcher. And I'm like, oh, geez, I beat you here. And then I asked her, I said, well, where's my sister and my stepdad? I said, where are they at? I sent them home. Like, I'll be okay. I sent them home. And she goes, and you go home too. You don't need to be here tonight. And that was his mom. She didn't want nobody to worry about her. And,
Right.
you
Right.
know,
Right.
and I said, Mom, I'm not going home. Now, I didn't very often tell my mom no because she would still smack me. And, but but that night I told her, I said, no, I said, I'm going to hang out with you.
Mm-hmm.
Let us be here, just be us. And I was so blessed. I got to spend the whole night, just me and her. And we got to talk about things in life that most people just don't talk about.
Yeah.
And that night I had asked her, I said, Mom, if you could go back and you don't have the polio and you start life all over and like, what would you have changed? What did you want to do?
Mm-hmm.
What would be different?
Mm-hmm.
And she told me, she said, Sammy, every time I get to the point, she said, I've thought about that in my life. And every time I get to the point where I'm going to change things, I
Mm-hmm.
stop it because God blessed
Mm.
me with the most beautiful life and I wouldn't change anything.
Oh.
And for
Oh.
me, that was more than powerful
Mm-hmm.
because we live our lives so much in the woe is me and you know
And wishing for what we didn't have, right? So many people spend their whole life wishing for what they don't have instead of seeing the beauty in what they do have.
yeah
Yeah.
and so I was that really showed me you know what faith could be.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I didn't wasn't even close to it at that moment.
Were
And
you going to church then, though? Were you still in like the church mode
uh
where you were just sort of checking the box, going to church and not?
checking the
Okay.
box, yep,
Okay.
yeah, that was about it. And then fast forward, so that was on a Friday. And then fast forward, she passed away at the following Wednesday.
Okay.
And I was holding her hand and watching her take her last breath. And I
Mm-hmm.
and I dropped to my knees once the machine started making that noise and just the whole deal.
Yeah.
And I dropped to my knees and I was screaming at God.
Oh.
Don't take her. She's the good one. Take
Oh.
me. Take me. The world doesn't need me, but it
Oh.
needs her. And it was in that moment that this
Mm-hmm.
absolutely happened to me.
Yeah.
It felt like something grabbed my shoulder and pulled me up and said, Mom can walk now. She's okay.
Oh.
And
Well, if that won't make you believe, I don't know what will.
that was a big sledgehammer. Did I
Yeah.
believe? No.
Yeah.
It was a start. And I believe that that's the progression that most of us have to go on. It's even though we have that life-changing event that might happen,
Mm-hmm.
I truly believe for most of us, that's still not it.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. Same thing with me. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
No.
you still have this journey of real awakening that It's like your eyes open a little bit and then a little bit more and then a little bit more. It's a total progression. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah,
Some people maybe it just bing and you're there. I didn't experience it in that way myself.
me neither.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, and I've
So,
almost bet that the people that even have the being,
mhm.
if they really look back, there's been smaller little hits,
Probably.
you know,
Probably. Yeah.
it's, you know,
So you leave the hospital that night and you have
yeah.
this moment that's very lucid for you and you're like, "Okay, somebody literally laid on me that mom's okay and she's walking now." What do you do then? What does that journey look like for you after?
I went in the army, went back in the army,
Okay.
and it just, again, I don't think it was by chance. It was 2008, the
Mhm.
year of
Oh
craziness
yeah.
with the market and everything.
Yep, housing market, yeah.
And so I went back in the army. I signed a 1 year contract, and about three quarter, and I left, and I was still mad at God. I was still mad that
For
mom was
taking
gone.
her.
And
Mhm.
yeah. And it was just, and this was 2009 that I went back in, and I was still mad. And I was about three quarters of the way through my time, and another sergeant, had asked me. He said, "Hey, you want to go to church with me?" Now, I didn't go to church
Okay.
that year.
After mom passed, it was like,
Nope.
"Nope, sorry. I'm pissed
I
at
was
God. I'm
mad.
not going." Okay.
Yeah. And he asked me, he said, "Hey, why don't you come to church Sunday with us, me and my family?" And I kind of hee-hawed, and then I finally said, "Okay." And I think we've all been in this service where we're sitting there and it's like the preacher is talking directly to you. And he was telling me that,
Mm-hmm.
well, his sermon that day was about forgiveness.
Mm.
And it was, you need to not forgive those around you, not forgive God,
Forgive yourself.
forgive yourself, and
Mm-hmm.
and find that journey, get on that road. And that road left, uh, I walked out of church and I sat there for at least an hour after the service was over. And the preacher come over and "You doing all right?" And we talked for a minute and told him about my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Well, it sounds like you need to go home, you know." And I was like, "Yeah." And so I finished out my term and went back home. Went back to church, but it still wasn't it was still, I went right back
You
to
were in the
just back in the
motion.
box.
Yeah.
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 And in 2014, or I'm sorry, 2012, um, I had one employee, and I'm driving to work every day. I had a little Ford Ranger, little purple Ford Ranger.
And you're painting at this point?
Yep,
The
yep.
painting business?
I had
Okay.
just opened up my own company,
Okay.
and I had one employee, and he rode with me every day. They only
Mm-hmm.
had one car, so he would ride with me. Well, we had got some ice and snow the night before, and he called me up that morning at like 5 in the morning. He said, "Hey, I got to take my kid to school, and today I will just drive in."
Mm-hmm.
Now, for 6 months, he had rode with me every day.
Okay.
And I said, "Okay, no big deal. I'll see you
Yeah.
down there."
Yeah.
So I'm out here on the highway here in St. Louis, and I'm going around these big S curves. And I'm in the fast lane because that was the only lane they had cleared. And I'm only doing about 40, and I hit black ice.
Oh no.
And the truck swung sideways, and I slammed into the concrete barrier that was in between the,
Mm-hmm.
oncoming
Mm-hmm.
traffic or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Slammed into that. It kicked me off of that, and I was headed back towards traffic coming at me at like a 45-degree angle.
Oh
And
boy.
all I see is this diesel coming at me.
Oh boy.
And I literally, Angela, I let go of the wheel, and I said, "All right, God, I'm I'm in
Yeah.
your hands."
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
all I seen was a diesel coming at me.
Yeah. Yeah. There was nothing you could do.
No. And the diesel missed me, but the 56-foot trailer went right over top of me. And when I say over top of me, I mean it literally went over the cab of my truck.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, the back wheels hit when the back wheels hit the truck, it kicked me back across the highway. I slammed back into the concrete barrier. And when I finally came to a stop, I was facing traffic in between the fast lane and the next lane, and cars are coming at me. I kind of check myself, like,
Like, am I
okay.
still alive? Yeah.
And I grabbed the driver's side door handle. It opened right up, and I got out, I ran across 5 lanes of highway and ended up on the hill. And there proceeded to be in a 34 car pileup because of my truck.
Mm.
And it was, and I, and it literally happened within 2 minutes. I mean, it was so
Man.
fast.
And
And
only you probably only spared because you got out and ran.
nobody hit my truck,
Oh, you're kidding.
but it was because of the truck. People were swerving
But nobody
around.
hit it.
Nobody else hit the truck,
Wow.
but they were hitting everything else.
Yeah.
And fast forward about maybe 30 minutes, and there's 2 helicopters over. It made national news.
Mm-hmm.
Big pile up in St. Louis,
Mm-hmm.
and there's 2 helicopters over us. There's cops everywhere, fire, ambulances, everything. And I'm sitting in a cop car in the front. I always preference that. And this officer gets in the car, and I'm just bawling. And he goes, "You all right, Mr. Farrens? You okay?" I said, "Yeah, my wrist hurt a little bit, and my ankle hurt a little bit." And I said, "I just got to know how's everybody else? Who all's hurt? Like,
Yeah.
what's going on?"
Yeah.
He said, "Right now, we're sending all the ambulances back to their hospitals and stuff. Nobody got
Everybody's
hurt.
okay. Oh,
Everybody's fine." He said, "We got minor scrapes and bruises, but everybody's okay."
wow.
And I was just, wow, man, like, that's just crazy to me.
Well, I mean, it's crazy that you made it. I mean, not to have that diesel engine connect with you, and then only to have not to have your truck be low enough that the actual trailer itself didn't like take off the top of your damn truck because
Well,
I mean,
the story
jeez.
isn't over.
Oh gosh.
So fast forward about 4 hours after
Yeah.
it, and they had taken my truck over to a junkyard, and
Hmm.
my wife come pick me up. And fast forward about 4 hours, and I said, "Well, we need to go over and get stuff out of my truck, and this and
Hmm.
that."
Hmm.
And when we pulled up, all we could see was the driver's side of the truck, and there wasn't a scratch on it. There was nothing. Like, it was
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no. And I'm in my head, I'm going, no, I know that just this happened. Like,
Yeah.
why does my
Yeah.
truck look so perfect? This is
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah.
And I opened up the door, and the whole passenger side of the truck was gone. Where this guy Matt, had sat for 6 months.
Would normally have been.
Yep. And I mean, it was gone. It
Wow.
was completely smashed.
I forgot all about Matt. He was supposed to be being in the car that day. I forgot all about the beginning of the
Yeah.
story that Matt normally would have been there for 6 months. Oh my gosh.
Yep. Yep.
Wow.
And when I sat in the truck, the metal of the truck came up and formed completely perfectly over me.
Wow.
I mean, like
Like,
like
yeah.
a shoe.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
I was like, all right. And see, there's another sledgehammer.
Oh yeah, well, I don't know if it was a sledgehammer, but it was definitely a miracle for goodness sakes. I mean, especially going into it when you said you saw the truck and you're like, all right, God, this is up to you. Like legitimately, wow.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah.
so that happens.
So that happens.
So that happens. And then what? Do we start to have some kind of like get up in the morning and thank him for the fact you're alive every day? Or what what does your practice look like after that?
Nope.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
I am a hardhead. Mom always said I was a hardhead.
Yeah, yeah.
And no, but I did start wondering.
Yeah.
I went to church because we were still kind of regular churchgoers then, especially with the kids. We went to church. I can be honest and say we went to church because I wanted my kids to go to church.
There's a lot of parents out there that say that.
Yeah.
You're not
And
alone.
it still wasn't about me, you know.
Hmm.
And I, to say that I know the exact time or day or oh this is what happened and that's really what started my faith journey, I don't know. But I do know that I started going, let me pay attention to this a little bit more.
Yeah.
Let me open up the Bible and just maybe read this thing that they call the Bible.
Yeah.
And I found myself doing that a little bit
Hmm.
more. And
Hmm.
then at Sunday, at church, I would actually pay
Listen.
attention
Hmm.
and let it consume me.
Hmm.
Um, Listen to the stories and try to understand them a lot better. So that started happening a whole lot more. And my my youngest daughters, my youngest daughter, so we were at one church. We didn't really care for the children's ministry that they had.
Hmm.
And so we decided we were going to leave that church.
Hmm.
And so me and her, really, it was me and her. We went and we checked out like five or six other churches. And we
Okay.
would just go on Sunday and totally judge. I mean, it was all judgment.
I love the honesty. So good.
Yeah. Walk in the door. How did they treat us walking in the door? How was children's ministry? How was the service? How was the
Hmm.
sermon?
Hmm.
Yeah, it was complete judgment. And
You have to find the place that you fit.
yeah, and that really is so true.
Hmm.
And we came along the church that now me and my wife have been members of for, I don't know, 7 years, I think,
Hmm.
something like that.
Hmm.
And that was where we decided, okay, this is going to be our home, at least for now.
Hmm.
This will be our home.
Hmm.
And our preacher talks a lot about the daily walk Bible
Hmm.
and all that. And I was like, huh, okay, well, let's get that. Because as much as I had attempted to read the Bible, like, and everybody knows this that starts reading the Bible's not an easy read.
No, 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 no. It's not an easy read. And also you can read it and still not understand what's being said. Like
Yeah,
what the actual story's about. You might understand the words, but you don't actually contextually understand what is
no,
being said. Yeah.
especially not with Jesus.
Hmm.
I'm going to say this twofold, or I don't know what that. I love Jesus the way he talks. I can't stand Jesus because of the way he talks, because it's all parables. And so
Yeah.
what that really made me do was go, okay, I need to understand this guy a whole lot better
Yeah.
because he talks in stories.
Yes.
Well, I like stories,
Yeah, I
you know?
know.
And
I
so
know.
it's, all right, well, let's figure this part out. And so because of that, I found myself more engulfed in, okay, let's really learn this stuff,
Hmm.
learn what he's talking about,
Hmm.
learn what he means by, you know, oh, there was 12 sons and, one of the parables, but
Yeah.
learn what he means by all this stuff. And so I found myself again, just kind of like you said earlier, it gets
Yeah.
bigger, it
Yeah.
gets
Yeah.
bigger.
So what does your practice look like today?
Well, here, we've got one more story we have to tell
All right, one more
that
story.
gets us to today.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So I'm a member of this church for 5 years. And then one Sunday, and again, I feel like I was doing a lot better, but I still wasn't all in.
Hmm.
And then one Sunday, our preacher said, hey, we got this mission trip. We're going to be going down to Kentucky, this and that. If you'd like to sign up and be a part of it, sign up. And I'm sitting, and he did that during service.
Hmm.
And it was like God hit me with the hammer and said, you're going to this. And in that moment, I looked at my wife sitting next to me and I said, I'm going to go on that. And she goes, you've never been on a trip, mission trip.
Hmm.
And I go, yeah, but I think God just told me I have to go on this one. And she goes, okay, well, go. And I said, okay. And so fast forward 2 months, I found myself in Kentucky and um, I was helping. The second day we were there, we were at like a food shelter
Mm-hmm.
where people would drive through and we'd load up their cars
Mm-hmm.
with a bunch of
Mm-hmm.
food. And we were waiting. We had just unloaded the diesel. We were waiting. There was about 15 of us. We were waiting inside the building for everything to actually kick off. And the lady running the thing, she comes in and she goes, in her southern accent, she said, I need everybody outside right now. We've got to pray over a young lady that is pulled up here today. So come on out. We're going to surround the car.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's do it.
And again, God puts us where we're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And we don't even know it most of the time. And I found myself holding hands by the passenger door.
Hmm. Uh-oh.
And so she's screaming and hollering
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, whoa, man, you're freaking me out.
Ah!
I'm Christian faith, like just like Baptist, like we don't
Yeah.
scream.
Yeah.
But and and she just stops and she goes, Mr. Sammy, will you pray over this lady? Please pray for her. She needs your prayers. And I said, okay. I don't normally do this, but okay. Yeah. And so I said a prayer and then that was the end of it. The lady,
Hmm.
we were praying, there was 4 women in the car
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't know which one we were praying over. Like, I don't think nobody did.
Right.
And the lady in the passenger seat said, I seen you in I seen you in my dream last night.
Mm.
You're why I'm here.
Oh.
And I'm like, what? Now I'm kind of freaking out. I'm like, what? What?
Yeah.
And so that was the mom. The daughter was driving, and the daughter looks over and goes, Mama, is that the guy you were talking about? And she said, yeah, that's him. And she goes, the daughter said, Mama said she had a dream about you last night. We were supposed to come up here. We live like an hour from here.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, oh. And the lady in the driver's seat said God sent you to me last night in my dreams.
Mm-hmm.
She goes, the daughter said, Mama hasn't been out of the house in 3 years. She had a stroke 3 years ago and her legs stopped
Wow.
working.
Wow.
And she hasn't been out of the house. She won't even go outside to see a sunset or a sunrise.
Oh.
Like, sir, when I say she won't come out of the house, she won't come out of the house. And she said that God sent you to her last night in a dream, said we were supposed to be here because you had a story to tell her.
Oh, about your mom.
Initially, I was like, I don't have a story. Like,
Mm.
I think the whole time that initially I was in shock, like, what? This woman, like, this is weird, man. This is somebody telling
Yeah.
me they dreamt about me.
Yeah,
Like,
no, but you were supposed to tell her all about your mom and how your mom lived a full life without the use of her legs. And oh my God, yeah.
yep. And that's what I
Wow.
stood there and did.
Yeah.
And I told her, I made her make a promise to me
Mm-hmm.
that she doesn't miss another sunrise or sunset. Every day, I want you to come outside for at least a moment and you watch that
Yeah.
sunrise or that sunset.
Yeah.
And, that I can honestly say was the day that I said, okay, I have a purpose in this world and God's
Mm.
God's
And
got
how
my
long ago
back.
was that? When
That
it
was
was?
actually a year ago, 11 months
Okay.
ago, because
Okay.
we're going on the next mission trip next month.
Yeah.
So that
Wow.
was 11 months ago. And
Wow.
I couldn't believe it. Like,
Yeah.
I drove,
That
and it
was
was funny.
your confirmation, Sammy. He's here. He's with
Yeah,
you. He knows. And he's
yeah,
going to use you. Yeah.
yeah. And it
So
was funny. We
beautiful.
we actually teased about it. She goes, the daughter, right before they got ready to leave, she goes, "All right, well, I guess we're going to take our hour drive back." And I said, "Hey, just so you know, you all drove an hour to get here. I drove 9 hours." just
Yeah.
to make sure I was here where I was supposed to be today.
That's right. That's right.
And to me, that's it. It was like, God is always going to put me where I'm supposed to be.
Hmm.
And then it's just up to me to trust it.
Have you read The Surrender Experiment yet? Have you read that?
I have not.
Get that book and read it.
All right. I will.
Michael Singer, The Surrender Experiment. That is, I just finished it. And that's exactly what that book will teach you. God will put you where you're supposed to be, but you have to allow Him to do it.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Surrender.
Well, my friend, geez, what a story. What a story that was. And we have reached the end now of our time together. So we're going to go into our questions
All
so
right.
that we
I'm
can
the
help the
question.
listeners out. All right. So you have listened to the podcast. You know what's coming. Question number 1, what have you read or absorbed? So some sort of resource that you've used to really come to know God other than the Bible.
Um, I did the what's his name? The purpose, the
Purpose driven?
purpose driven life. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Which was great. It was absolutely because I speak a lot about purpose
Mm-hmm.
and all that,
Yes.
but I never did it in a faith way.
Okay.
And so we did it as a small group. And I want to tell you, that was amazing. And I would recommend everybody, purpose driven life is
Okay.
truly something to go through.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Haven't had anybody recommend that yet, so that's great. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Very cool. All right, so the second question. The second question is when you're in now, okay. So this is great because the story you just told is an example of, right? The story you just told is an example of when you're in connection with spirit, right? You're in a place where you are supposed to be, you are to give that story to that beautiful woman in the passenger seat. Did you have any kind of physical feeling as you received word that you were in her dream and then you knew that you were supposed to talk to her about your mom and her story? Did you feel any of that as all of that was happening physically?
Initially, it was, I guess, shock would be the feeling, like
Mm-hmm.
kind of I don't know, a numbness or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then because even now, again, mom passed away in 2008. Anytime I get to talk about her, I get excited. And
Yeah.
it's just makes me smile, makes me happy. So even sitting there with her that day
Yeah.
and just talking about mom, and I gave her a lot of mom, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
of mom's life. Then it was excitement. It was joy. It
Yeah.
was, and I truly believe that in that moment, I knew, God, you put me here.
Yeah, that's what I
You
say.
put
So
me
in
here.
that moment, you're really that's a full connection with spirit moment, right? When you have that realization that you're like, oh, this is why I'm here. This is
This
my
is
moment. This is what I'm supposed to say. This is what I'm supposed to do. And you get that, and then you get, for me, it's like this full body like tingling. It's like a charge from the crown of my head down is what I get when that happens. But yeah,
charge.
yeah.
That was it.
Yeah, yeah, it's almost
That
like
was
this.
it. That is
Yeah, it's like
beautiful.
an energy field that just goes. Yeah,
Yep.
super
Oh, I
cool.
love that. Oh, a
Super cool.
charge.
Yeah,
I've never
right.
been able to explain that. That
Yeah,
is so awesome. Thank you for that.
yeah, yeah. You're welcome. You
Oh,
like, well, you should know this. So you're in construction, sticking your finger in a light socket. Do the same. Would do the same thing. All right. So let's see. So the last question. We have a lot of people who listen to this podcast, as we talked about, that go through this time where they're not really quite awake to what's going on yet. It's like the journey sort of starts. And when you were younger, let's go back to when your 20-year-old self. And luckily, God sent a miracle to you with that guy smoking his cigarette on the roof that day. What words of wisdom do you have now for that boy of 20 that you would give to him in that moment to help him out?
trust. I go a lot with trust.
Mm-hmm.
Trust and have faith. You don't need to know the exact road. Just trust that God's got you on the right path,
I love that.
and that's very hard it was very hard for me to do. And even now at times I find myself, questioning, and
Mm-hmm.
Stop the questions and just trust.
Yeah.
Just truly trust that um, that even though you may never understand. I did.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I driving 9 hours to meet a lady?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I am,
You
and
changed
it's
her life.
trust that.
You changed her life that day.
Yeah, it
God,
changed
God,
mine.
yeah, God used you as a miracle for her.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I would tell myself, my younger self, and everybody listening to this,
Mm-hmm.
trust.
Yeah.
Trust that faith, trust that little tingle
Mm-hmm.
when it comes on that maybe you don't understand it, but just trust it.
Yeah.
Follow it, see where it goes, because it's leading you someplace better than you even thought.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And what a great note to end on. And you need to read that book, The Surrender Experiment. That's your
Yes,
homework. And you can
I
text
wrote
me
it
and let me
down.
know how. Yeah, text me and let me know what you think of that. Sammy, thank you so much for being on today. I, as always, appreciate the time we get to spend together. And today is no different from that. So thank you for being so open and vulnerable and sharing your story.
Well, thank you for not just having me on today, but when I heard you were doing this podcast and
Mm-hmm.
and what the purpose of it was, and
Mm-hmm.
just listening to you talk about your journey, along with letting others share theirs.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for doing this because so many people need this.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah.
It's
You are
truly
welcome.
you're changing the world, my friend.
No, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, we will have how you can follow Sammy in all of the show notes. So they will be after you, Sammy. I'm sure Sammy is a speaker and an author and a coach. So you definitely need to check out all of his information as well. So again, thank you, Sammy. And thanks to all of you who listened to Evolve Through God today. And we will catch you next episode.